Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And of course, you can read my work on ESPN.com. One little programming note, I will be doing the live stream Tuesday night, but this time, just for this week, it's at 9 p.m. I'll be joined by Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. Little scheduling conflicts, so we're going to do it at 9 o'clock at night Eastern time. So look for the link tomorrow morning on the Empire YouTube page. I will also tweet it out. So join us then. Bring your questions, bring your comments, bring your enthusiasm, because you should have plenty of it. And how, in a couple minutes, I'm going to get to my, I hate to call it like an X and O review. It's really not. It's really about like why certain things went well or did not go well, why certain guys played well, etc. So anyway, I'll get to that in a few minutes. Before I get there, how about the attention that the Commanders are receiving? Because it's got to be very weird for you guys to feel and see what's going on, because now you have people saying, is Washington the best team in the NFC East? Is Jaden Daniels the best quarterback in the NFC East? How many quarterbacks would you take over Jaden Daniels right now in the NFL? Those are discussions that are now being had in the national conversation. So this is what happens. And for years, I would say, like, the way you change the narrative is by playing a certain way on the field. That's what they're doing. You guys want respect? This is how you get it. They're getting it now in droves because of Jaden Daniels. And then also what others are doing too, because listen, he is a terrific talent, but you can't do it alone. But I do think it all starts with him. Now, just think back 2 years ago where this franchise was at and look at where they're at now. How different could you have ever envisioned what is taking place right now? This was before, remember, 2 years ago at this point, this was before Dan Snyder announced that they were going to sell the team. You didn't know about Josh Harris. You didn't know about Jaden Daniels. He was going into his first year at LSU. He was not a guy that you probably had on your radar for someone, oh, hey, in 2 years, watch. So just what an amazing transformation, and 3 wins in a row. The result is that they're getting the level of respect that I think you wanted, but they're getting it because of their play. That's how you get it. And there's a lot of talk about what they can do and build because of Jaden Daniels and some other picks as well. But it starts with number 5. So I'm going to get to him just for a couple minutes, but I do want to start with something that most of my focus tonight is going to be on the improved pass defense that we saw on Sunday. Not the run defense, but the improved pass defense. What were some of the things that were taking place that helped in all that? Why was the pass rush getting there, et cetera? So, but one of the things that we, as I'm recording this, it's late Monday night, folks. If you can see my eyes, they're a little bit dark under here. Got about 2 hours sleep on the red eye coming back. I've been kind of pretty much been working all day since I got home. So a little bit bleary eyed. So for you YouTube police who try to critique every little word that is said or every little something or other, have at it, because this is your night to go crazy, because I am a little bit tired. So, and there's nothing more than the YouTube police likes when somebody doesn't do it to their exact liking. Anyway, but let's get to what Dan Quinn talked about today. One of the things he talked about was just the cohesiveness and the connection that guys are making. And you see it, right? So you can see it and feel it. And it's been there since this group came in the spring. You could feel it then, you could feel it in the summer. But what you didn't know is what kind of difference was it going to make? You knew it would help, but to what degree? And we're seeing that. It's more than just Jaden. Again, so much starts with him, but it goes beyond that, because if you just had him playing well, they could be 1-3. We've seen that before too. But I think there's something else going on. And that's where you have to say, what is going on with these guys? And, funny, because Dan Quinn last week brought it again after the Bengals game, brought up Olemi Zaccheaus and just how he handled himself on the sidelines, despite getting like only a few snaps in that game, no targets, but yet he was the guy kind of cheering and being very supportive of teammates. That stuff matters. And it gets noticed by coaches. When coaches notice it, then other guys pick up on that too, right? When it's an emphasis to them, it becomes an emphasis to others. And so on Sunday, one of the things he noticed was after an extra point, the first two guys out there to greet the extra point team, Jaden Daniels and Bobby Wagner. So guys who are leaders, and certainly one who is one of the all-time leaders and one who is a developing leader and understanding his role, what it means for him to be in that situation, to go out and do that. He knows that. It's not out of arrogance, but it's just out of, hey, responsibility. This is what you do when you're the quarterback. And at the end, he clearly does that. So a couple things with his game, and I'm going to move on from him quickly because I've talked a lot about him after the game, but felt like he did a better job keeping his eyes up. Wasn't always resulting in big plays. In fact, very few, but it's become an emphasis. And sometimes he's running when he has that, but at least he's keeping his eyes up to see what else he has. There may have been one or two times he could have thrown the ball in those situations, but I'm kind of okay with him just making kind of trusting all that a little bit more as he gets going. And, he's getting positive yards in that. They're moving the chain still. And I think that's okay. Just the thing that I like is that he's keeping his eyes up. The next thing is going to be trusting what you have. But he's also very cautious. You want to know why he doesn't turn the ball over? He said the one is just because he's very smart with the ball. I wouldn't say cautious. I think he's smart because there's sometimes we saw some plays the other day, some throws he tried to make, the interception and the next series to McLaurin. Those are tough passes, but he's willing to make those. So it's not. I remember when Jason Campbell was here, I thought he didn't turn over the one year with Jim Zorn. He was like 8 touchdowns and no turnovers and through 12 games, something like that. But he wasn't going to push it either. But I think Jaden Daniels will. And so I think we're starting to see that. So I'm okay with him making sure and taking care of the ball because he's keeping his eyes up. That's a good development. He has the arm talent. We saw that too. Terry McLaurin touchdown, the Luke McCaffrey catch. And it's always about it's not about arm strength, it's about arm talent. So the one to McCaffrey, for example, looking to the left, coming back to the middle, boom, there it goes. As soon as he sees it, it's out. And same thing with McLaurin in the end zone. That's how it gives those guys an extra little advantage to get in the ball. If you have to sit there and soak it in, the play is lost, or it's a turnover, whatever. You're not hitting him in stride, whatever it is. It's not going to go as well as you need it to be. So that's something that jumped out as well. Washington used more of the play action game. They used a lot more two tight end sets in the game Sunday. In fact, they had 21 plays with two tight ends or more. That's a season high. They had, I think it was 8 with three tight ends in the game. That's not a season high, but the 21 is with two. That's why Ben Sinnott got a lot more action too. They wanted to do that. And then going back to Jaden Daniels, one of the things that Dan Quinn was asked in his Zoom presser today was just about it's not a surprise, or why does he think Daniels is playing as well as he is? And he said, there's no secret here. There's no magic pixie dust. It's because, quote, he works his ass off. And he went back to talking about how in Tempe or in Arizona that the quarterback office was next to the coach's office in the hotel. And so they'd be up there and they'd hear the quarterbacks talking about and watching film and talking about plays, et cetera. He said it was over and over and over again. That's why Daniels is succeeding, because he's willing to put in that work. It's what he does. And I've told you that for a long time after the draft, before. It's what he does. So anyways, now you know, but that's what he said. There's no secret sauce. It's just hard work, and hard work pays off. When you have talent, you combine it with hard work, and the right kind of hard work, which is clearly taking care of your body, doing all that. But for a quarterback, it better be in the film room as too, because that's where you're going to get your preparation. The preparation is key. Terry McLaurin talked about it as well. That's a big deal for him. So anyways, there you go. The O-line has helped him too. I think there's a working hand in hand. The O-line deserves a lot of credit for what's going on. I think to me, that goes back to play calling scheme and a quarterback who can help get them out of a bad situation. Just like they can protect him, he can protect them. And we've seen everything that's going in now. It's kind of the opposite of what happened last year. It's like George Costanza took over and said, hey, this didn't work, do the opposite. So they're not running 70% of the time, but they're running it more, and they're more balanced, and they're making the play action game looks like the run game too. So they're marrying concepts very well. That's why things are starting to work. And I think the line's doing a good job. They're more cohesive. And I know it's funny because now there's a lot I've seen of people like, oh, I had as big, I told you before, like they didn't have the same worries that the outside world did about the offensive line. They just didn't. But I think people get caught up in names of positions, but you had to look at how are they coming together, but also what was going to be the impact of this game. Didn't know. I had questions too, but I had questions more than I had concerns because I felt like I liked what they did in the interior. I felt like Coleman could play after watching him, and then also Lucas would be a good fill-in if nothing else. So but it was really the cohesiveness, how long would it take, and then the impact of Kingsbury's play calling mixed with the other coaches on that staff, because it's not just him who's coming up with this offense, and it's been a good situation for them so far.
Hey, it's Bram Weinstein here, voice of the Commanders, and of course, frequent guest of this podcast, The John Keim Report. I wanted to let you all know that my show, which airs at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on ESPN 630, is now exclusively produced by Empire Media, my company, and it's going to be distributed through our network. So I'm asking you, please, if you subscribe to this show and love this show, give mine a try as well. Subscribe to the Bram Weinstein Show wherever you get your podcasts, and many of the shows and many of the elements that are in the show will be available on the Empire Media YouTube channel. We're going to talk a ton of Commanders and other DC sports. Check it out.
On to some injury news. So you have Jordan McGee and Marcus Mariota who are on IR. They're eligible to come off this week in practice. Don't know yet. We asked Quinn about that. He said there would be an update on Wednesday because that's when the first day of practice is. So if we see them out there, we know they're in a good way. He did say things are trending in the right direction with the injured guys. One of those guys is Austin Eckler. He has a concussion. Not going to know about him until later in the week. So really hard, not even going to speculate because we don't know. He's still in the concussion protocol. Wednesday will tell a lot. Thursday, Friday. And then you have Tyler Owens, safety. He's also on there. Nick Allegretti with the ankle. He got rolled up on his right ankle, and the X-rays were negative after the game, but they're not going to know until they'll have more of an update on Wednesday if he practices, whatever. So Michael Dieter went in for him the other day when he went out. All right, let's get to some of the game chatter here, right? Jared, I'm going to start with a couple of things. One of the things that Dan Quinn said was that he felt like that was one of Jeremy Chinn's better performances since he's been here. I'm going to go a step further. That was his best performance since he's been here because he hasn't played like this. Like he was way more active and decisive to me in the backfield and just all over the place. I felt like that was the first time you really felt him consistently throughout the game. I thought Dorrance Armstrong had a really good game as well. I'll get to him in a minute. But with Chinn, I felt like he was physical, and you saw some of that start to take place in the Bengals game. Some of those hits down in the pass game, but just in general. And I think you saw that continue on Sunday. Physical, decisive, and I felt like more reactive even in the pass game. He had a 3rd down and 9 where he's playing in the cover 2, and he's Murray overthrows a receiver, but I just liked how quickly and decisive Chinn was breaking on the ball. Didn't break it up, but he was there at the right spot at the right time to help out and do his job. So that was a good sign. He had a 2nd down and 4. He makes a 3-yard stop on the target. I think it was a tight end. If he doesn't make a good tackle, it's a good physical tackle. You don't make that tackle, you're picking up the 1st down, right? Well, here's why that's important, because the next play, 3rd down and 1, they get a stop. And on that 3rd down and 1, this is what I really like about that. I'm going to deviate here from Jeremy Chinn for a minute because this goes back to Bobby Wagner too and the veteran savvy, because I don't think this was necessarily designed to happen, to unfold this way. They took away those crossers for the most part on Sunday, in part because of Bobby Wagner. He had a couple times where he did really well, but this play in particular. So on this play, and I think Marvin Harrison may have been the first read here because and Benjamin St. Juste, who I'm going to talk about in a minute, but he's on Marvin Harrison. There's a flat foot read, and he gets physical with him, and so then basically he disrupts the timing of that play. Harrison's going to try and run it post corner, and it just disrupts it. That's going to be out. So Murray's looking for another option there. Who comes a crosser underneath? Mike Samersill's on him, but he's got to run through traffic, so he's getting behind the play. If Bobby Wagner isn't there and doesn't recognize what's going on, that's going to be a completion. But what Wagner does is you can see him peeking to his right as the receiver comes across the middle. This is who Murray wants now. And what Wagner does is this is all legal. The steps and boom, knocks into him at the 1st down marker. So it's about 1 yard downfield, legal spot. Very, very heads up veteran play. Disrupts it. Then because of that, then Murray has to go to a third option and a receiver running a little pivot route, out and back in. Noah Igbenogany, excuse me. Igbenogany then makes a terrific play, stays with them, good quickness, good cut, good reaction, knocks it away. But it started with St. Juste taking Harrison away, and then a very, very heads-up savvy play by Bobby Wagner. That's why guys like that are here and how they can help. But just a really good job there. And again, like with Jeremy Chin, there were a couple of other times he had a nice physical run stop in the run game as well. So I just felt like his presence was more pronounced than it had been in other games. Benjamin St. Juste, and again, I think he's had a solid year as well. So, is he a top number one corner? No, but that's not what he's not walking around like he's supposed to be that, but he is competing. And I think that's good. I felt like he's been pretty consistent with all that. And I like that corner group is starting to grow on me a little bit just because I like the way they've competed, if nothing else. Emmanuel Forbes played a handful of snaps and did at times a better job. So, there were no bad mess ups by anybody. Sometimes you're going to give up a catch. That happens. Are you making the tackle to prevent it from going further? Are you getting back and playing the next play? He did have one pass defense down the sideline, and physical play down the sideline. That's fine, but he was in the right spot. So, that's a good development for them. I think Sammer still has been much more quiet lately, and I mean that in a good way. Like he's not. First game, I felt like he was lost at times with the leverage. I haven't seen that in that way. And Igbenogany gave up a touchdown to Marvin Harrison. It's Marvin Harrison. You're going to lose that battle sometimes, especially at the goal line. You're thrown to the corner. There's nobody there. It's man-to-man coverage. They beat you on that play. That happened. So, but I felt like St. Juste did a good job when he was on Harrison. And one of the things I liked about it is the way he changed up the looks. I know people wanted you got to press. You can't press every play. And these guys do it. It's funny because the only time that people they notice when they're not is when they give up a play if they're not in it. Well, they gave up couple touchdowns when they were in press against Cincinnati. So, but what I like is you got to change things up. You cannot play the same look all the time. Guys get used to that. It's not that hard to do. And not everybody likes playing the same style every time. Not every corner is adept at it. And some receivers are great at getting away from it. But what I like with St. Juste and what they did defensively a lot to Murray that I felt like helped the pass rush, working hand in hand here with the coverage, is change it enough after the snap to then cause Murray to maybe pause a little bit and then keep him contained in the pocket with the pass rush. They did that and it worked. So in fact, the 4th and 1, which I'll get to in a minute, is proof of that. So, but I felt like they did a good job of that. And St. Juste did a good job. Sometimes he's flat foot reading, and that you can drive on it. You can be a little bit more physical, but he also played to his help. He knew where the help was. Sometimes it might be a curl drop guy. Sometimes it's going to be the safety. But I felt like he played to his help, and that was it. I felt like he played a smart game. And then one thing Dan Quinn talks about is the communication. There are a couple examples that some by him. One involved Jeremy Chin. So there was, I think it was like a third down. There was an incompletion in which Bobby Wagner blitzes. So on the play, I want to make sure I got this right here. But on the play, Wagner blitzes. But initially, there's a motion to get a guy I think it was inside receiver. Well, Chin is over him by about 8 to 10 yards off, and St. Juste about 7 or so. He motions for Chin to come up. So he comes up to about 4 yards. As soon as the ball snapped, he's running up to cover the guy. Murray was going to go there, takes that away, and then Wagner gets in with the pressure, forces an incompletion. So that you can credit St. Juste for getting him up there, because if he's not, maybe Chin doesn't get up there and it's a completion and it's probably a first down. So little things like that add up quite a bit. And, I think there was another time with St. Juste where he gave up, everybody's going to give up catches. He gave up the 4th and 12 for 19 yards, doesn't get beat for a touchdown. They're up by a lot. You don't want to give up anything there. And it seemed like he kind of didn't bail on the coverage, but it seemed like he felt like he was running a go route. So that happens. Don't let him score, period. There was a 1st and 10 where he gives up a 5-yard play. But what I liked about that is the way he attacks Harrison, comes to the outside shoulder, that he's got inside help coming over, and Sammerstill gets him down, keeps him to a 5-yard gain. You're going to live with that all the time. You're okay with that. So I think just a good job by him. I like the way they changed up looks. The 4th and 1, this is the key play in the game. So it's funny, when you talk about this game, there this was they're up 14-7. So these two drive sequences here to me were pivotal in changing this game. And I'm going to go back to when Washington had the 3rd down and 4 inside like their 15 or whatever it was, and they converted. But they converted, and I talked about this after the game, so I don't want to belabor it, but they converted because Jaden Daniels is so accurate. And to me, accuracy is like hitting the proper shoulder. You can have a completion, doesn't mean you're accurate, because accuracy takes you into the catch. If he just completed the pass to Zacchaeus on this one, it could have been a 3rd down, 3-yard gain. Well, it's 3rd and 4. You needed 4. So if you can, but it's a completion, so it adds the percentage. This is the difference accuracy. He hits him on the outside and brings him into the catch. That bring him into the catch got him another yard, which gets him the 1st down. They sustain a scoring drive. They go up 14-7. Now we go to the other side. It's 14-7, and it's now Arizona with the 4th down and 1 at Washington's 35-yard line. So on this one, this is where communication comes in, and this is Mikey Samerstill and the entire secondary, and they did a good job. But this is, again, hand in hand. So on the play, the Cardinals start with a bunch formation on the left. They motion a guy to the other side. So now you have a 2-by-2 set. Samerstill in the bunch is communicating. Motion. He goes in motion. Communicate. They play. It looks like it's man coverage. It looks exactly like man coverage. They get it, ball snapped. Boom. It's zone. And it seems to confuse Murray a little bit. It just does. And because of that, that gives Dorrance Armstrong an extra split second to get home, get the sack, keep playing the game. That, so those plays, like even in a blowout, you're going to find a couple of plays like if this play goes a different way, where does this game go, right? So I think that's one of the things you can look at, but those are the kind of plays that this team made. That comes back to communication. So the other thing, though, is there's still too many issues in the run game, and we know that. And there are too many gaps coming up that are just too wide. Oh, I forgot to mention one other thing. So, because I did feel like Washington's defenders played with better leverage overall in the game. There was one time early in the game where I felt like Frankie Louvois, if you remember, there's like a 10-yard pass inside the red zone, gets down to about the 1-yard line. Well, on that play, like that was one of the few times I felt like they lost their leverage for sure. He's got to stay inside. He's got zone on the outside, and he gets juked by the back to get beat inside. It happens. There was another play in the game where against a tight end, and if you remember, he had there was a throw that was wide to the tight end that he's covering, but the reason why he makes that play is because he played his leverage. He takes away the inside, guy cuts back outside. He's in perfect position to defend that pass, make it a harder throw for Murray, and he throws it wide, but that's because he played with the right leverage. So I wanted to point that out as well. So let's get to the run defense, and I'm not going to listen. The hard part here is it's the same stuff that keeps happening. They've got to get that better. Fortunately for them, 5 of the next 6 opponents are right now do not have really good run games, but you don't want to give them an opening either. And by opening, I mean, in multiple ways, you don't want the gaps opening up, but you don't want to give an opening to have more success in that as well. And that's what's been going on. It's too often, it's still different things. Sometimes there was one time where Jamin Davis is out there and he's coming off the ball and he slips. Well, that leaves a gap. Sometimes it's Fedarian Mathis getting moved out of his gap. Sometimes he's over the center and stout and playing very stout. Johnny Newton, I think, is still learning the game. They're playing those two together, and I'm not always sure that it hasn't really been all that effective. So I think there's still some things that I like that they're giving them reps. They've got to give them reps because it's hard to play your starters in the line that many reps every game, but they've got to play better together. And I think they're still learning like what these guys can do. And Newton, I think, is still learning what he can do in the NFL. So, and that takes a minute. So, but I think that's something that they have to keep getting better at. Those two when they're in the game together, I think it's like, what did I have the stat at? It's over 6 yards a carry. I think they're allowing when they're in the game together. That's a lot. And that's up the middle. Now, Payne and Allen haven't been much more effective, but I felt like they were much better last week overall. And you saw more of the pressure game too. Yeah, John Allen got a sack. Payne gets a half a sack. Allen gets a sack because he beats the left guard. So that's a good sign for them because they need him. They need them. If they're going to if they're really going to transform as a defense, they've got to be better against the run, and those two have to lead the way. So a good job in the pass game and the pressure and keeping Murray in the pocket. And Dan Quinn talked about that. It's why Murray had 1 run for 3 yards, and he didn't hit any really big plays outside the pocket. I mean, you've seen him do that in every game. You've seen him do it against this team. Didn't do it. I felt like the rush was pretty good, and you have some speed with Luvu. And there was one time those guys had to chase him down, and so they did a good job with them. And but the run game remains an issue. And sometimes, again, it could be a tackle getting out, it widen the gap. And there have been times where maybe the end gets nudged up the middle, and now you have a bigger gap to defend. But I've talked about that seemingly every week. So sometimes a linebacker's trying to undercut a block, and you have two guys out of the gap. Now you have another guy out of the gap too. So it adds up. Sometimes it's a defensive back got to fill the hole maybe a little bit quicker, and more decisively. It's a number of things. So, and then sometimes you're playing too deep and you get caught in the numbers, because Washington caught them in the numbers as well, for sure, in their run game. So all this stuff takes place, but it adds up to another week where they just didn't stop the run. Now, I'd say almost a third of Arizona's yards on the ground came after they were up 24. I think it was 24-7. So that's a good chunk. We're still talking, I think it was a little more than 50 yards. So you're still talking more than about 130 yards or so in the run game before that point. And that's just too much. It's going to be hard for them to survive, I think, over, for a long haul, if they don't get better against the run. So like, they're in the bottom three in yards per carry and rushing yards per game. So that's got to change. And, they play the Browns on Sunday. They don't have a great run game. Nick Chubb is coming back off of the PUP list this week. I don't know if he's coming back, but he's going to be able to practice. So he's eligible to come back. I don't know that he will. So, but that's got to stop. And, I think if they get that, then you can start to say you can build on what you showed Sunday, because what they showed Sunday overall was pretty good. On 4 for 11 on third downs, that was key. And then playing on the road, holding a team that had been playing pretty well offensively to 14 points, that's really impressive. And so sometimes, man, I would say this, like, I'd rather give up some of those yards on the ground. Now they got to get better than hit some of those explosive plays to Marvin Harrison, and they took that away completely. So sometimes it's like, what are you going to live with? And I don't think this is one thing I want to talk to him about in the locker rooms. Like, was that part of the thinking all? But they didn't always use too deep. Sometimes they're showing single high. Sometimes it's cover three. They threw a variety of looks at them, and it was designed, and it helped with the pressure, 4 sacks. So that all helps. Anyways, we all know that. The other thing is too, like, I'm curious to see how they develop with the 3 defensive tackle alignment, so that with Newton over the nose and they have Payne and Allen on either side. They did that one time the other day, and Newton did a great job against the center and it was a 0-yard gain on the play. I think they've only been together on the field like 5 times the last couple of games, but I would wonder how they're going to progress with that, especially if you face a team like Baltimore in 2 weeks who has Derrick Henry. You're going to want a little bit more beef up there, and getting Cleveland Farrell back. I forgot about him, to add him throw the injury list, but it sounded like on when we talked to Dan Quinn last week that Farrell would be back this week. That's a good help too. So because I think the edge needs to be set better. I brought up Jamin Davis a couple times. The edge wasn't set good enough. It allowed the guys to get outside, and so that's part of the problem too. And that's where Dorrance Armstrong, I felt, did a good job early in the game. I felt like even on that first drive where he was scoring, I felt like he did a good job setting the edge, playing with strength, getting a good pass rush consistently all game. I felt like that was easily his best game in Washington. And I like, just like, you getting upfield, getting his one hand in the chest, and getting the lineman off balance, and then ducking around the corner. Then he set him up, because of one of the first plays in the second half that he had steps up, gets inside, pressure inside. So I felt like he was consistent with that as well. And so that was a big, big plus for them. And the last thing I want to talk about, like, I'm not going to go into too much depth on Washington's run game, because I talked some about that the other day. I just really like the concepts. I really like what they're doing. And I'll probably talk about that throughout the week. Just some of the things they're doing. I'll probably write a story about why this offense now is so explosive. Obviously, a lot starts with Daniels, but it goes beyond that. So, but I will say Brandon Coleman did a nice job. That's one of the things I want to talk about. He played, I think it was 31 snaps. That's his most for the season. Slowly easing him in there. I think Cornelius Lucas continues to do a good job. So that's, it hasn't hurt them doing this rotation, and it's easing Coleman into the NFL. And what you saw on Sunday, like, his guy never got near. He had 12 pass rush snaps. His guy never got near the quarterback. Now, it wasn't always a one-on-one. Sometimes he's helping. Sometimes he's just awareness, looking for work. Sometimes there was a couple times where he's got no one, then someone gets passed off to him, and he handles his business. What I really like about Coleman is that, he's not as big as Cornelius Lucas, because Lucas is 6'8", but he does have good length, but he moves his feet exceptionally well. And he also does a good job. He plays with good, strong hands. And I think all those two factors made a big difference for him. But watch his footwork because they don't stop. So, I think that was a big key as well. And I think be curious to see what they do with him, how they utilize him more. Do they eventually just put him in there? You would expect that at some point, just to have him start. And I think part of it too is he moves better in the open field. Like you can do more things like that's Wiley moves better in the open field as well. It's why they have some success on the pulling action. They love to pull the guards and they're pulling their tackles as well. Once you get Coleman more settled in there, you can start doing some more of that with him as well. So anyways, folks, that's really it for me. Don't have much more to say. So third straight win, folks. What do you think? You have to be enjoying this. And I'm happy for you because it's been a long wait for all of you out there. So again, it's 9 o'clock Eastern time on Tuesday night with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. Then throughout the week, I'll have more podcast episodes. Keep you informed going into the Browns game on Sunday. First home game after 2-game winning streak. And it's their best 2-game showing in a long, long time. I think Nation, whatever it is, whatever the stadium name is going to be hopping. So there you go, folks. Northwest. So there you go, folks. Sorry, I keep almost calling it FedEx. It's Northwest. So, anyways, that place is going to be hopping because of the energy and the momentum that this team has started to gather. That's it for me. I'll talk to you next time.